beautiful Omega eBay.
Yeah, okay. All right, welcome everybody and welcome to anybody that's joining us virtually. This is the Landmark Preservation Commission meeting of January 9, 2024. I am officially calling it to order. My name is Julie Johnson. I'm the commissioner chair, and the first thing we do when we start a meeting is introduce the commissioners. Oh, I state the time, it is 1 p.m. on January 9, 2024. So let's introduce ourselves. Larry, can you start, please?
Yes, I'm Larry Sykes. I'm an architect and I was nominated by History Colorado.
Hello, I'm Gary Petrie and I'm an architect and I was nominated by the Denver Planning Board.
Hi, I'm George Dennis, retired law enforcement, nominated by History Colorado.
I'm Erica Warzel. I'm an architectural historian and preservation consultant.
I'm Nick Fusianis. I'm an architect and developer, and I was nominated by the American Institute of Architects.
All right.
And I'm Brittany Bryant, landmark preservation staff.
Sorry, we had a couple of weeks off at the holidays, so I'm a little rusty. But anyway, welcome everybody. So just to kick off, we've got some audio tips for all of you who are joining us virtually. For better sound quality, we strongly encourage you to download Zoom on your desktop, your laptop, tablet, or mobile device. You can click audio settings to bring up any additional menus. You can add background noise suppression. You can test your speaker and microphone, adjust their maximum output volumes. For presenters and public commenters, when it is your turn to speak, to mute or unmute, you can click on the little microphone icon at the bottom of the screen. You can expand the menu next to the microphone that will reveal some additional options. You can select your speaker and microphone devices, test your microphone and speakers, adjust their maximum output volumes, and if you still have audio challenges, you can switch to a phone or audio. Alrighty, so the first item on our agenda today are the meeting records for approval. We have November 21st, December 5th, December 12th, and December 19th, all of 2023. Commissioners, do you have any comments, any corrections, anything that you would wish to? Okay.
I'll make a motion
Thank you,
to
Erica.
approve the 4 meeting records.
Second? Gary has seconded. All in favor of approving the meeting records as presented? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? All right, thank you, staff. They all have been approved as presented. I appreciate that. All right, it is time then for our public comment period. At the beginning of every meeting, we like to give members of the public 2 minutes, up to 2 minutes each, to make comments about historic preservation in general. This is not including an actual project that's on our agenda later today, but it's preservation in general. If you are joining by phone, please dial *9 on your keypad or raise your hand, or you can email landmark@denvergov.org. And if you're with us Zoom, you can please click on the little microphone icon or hand raise button. Do we have anybody? All right, then we don't have anybody making a general public comment regarding preservation. So let's go on to the consent agenda. These are routine design review items which meet the design and guidelines and are recommended for commission approval without discussion. Any commission member can request that an item on the consent agenda move to the design review agenda. I will announce the consent agenda. Anybody that has any ex parte or any conflicts of interest needs to let us know. We'll get a motion and then we'll vote, and that's how that goes. So consent agenda so far today we have 2 items. We have 2023-COA-392 at 361 Lafayette Street in the Country Club District. We also have 2023-TAXC-007 at 3225 West 23rd Avenue in Whittier-Cofield. Commissioners, do you have any concerns or any? All right, great. Then do I hear a motion to approve consent agenda?
Madam Chair, I move to approve the consent agenda as read.
Okay. Second? I'll second. All in favor of approving the consent agenda as presented? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay? All right, the consent agenda has been approved as presented.
Seconded that.
Erica said, no.
Yeah, I heard both of you.
Oh, okay, sorry, I think I
Erica
gave,
had more.
I think Erica had more, she had more emotion than me
Yes.
first. Larry was, Larry was hesitant. That's okay, great, thank you very much. And if you are joining us here in person or virtually for one of those consent agenda items, you do not need, you can get in touch with your staff person at a later time, but you don't need to hang with us at the rest of the meeting. Of course, you are welcome to do so, but you do not have to. We are now on to the design review process, and these are items that require individual consideration by the commissions. I will announce the design review item, and commission members will announce any ex parte or conflicts of interest. Staff will introduce the application and make a recommendation, and commissioners can question the staff. The applicant has 10 minutes to make a presentation, and the commissioners can question the applicant at that point. Public comment period follows the applicant's presentation, and those are limited to 2 minutes per person. And of course, if you'd like to speak regarding a specific project and you are not part of that applicant team, please click on the hand raise button for Zoom on your computer, or if you're calling on your phone, dial *9 and raise your hand, or you can email landmark@denvergov.org prior to the public comment period. Staff can clarify if necessary. Commission will deliberate. Commission will make a motion and vote. And so let us begin with our first project, 2023-COA-654 at 2432 Stout Street in the Curtis Park area. And Jesse White is our staff person. Jesse, anytime you're ready.
So this is 2432 Stout Street, shown on the left-hand side of the screen. This building was constructed in 1886 and is a contributing building to the Curtis Park Historic District. The primary structure on the lot is a simple Italianate building with a bay window and corbelled brick cornice. Commission reviewed and denied an application for an ADU at this address on July 11th, 2023, and that's the center image shown. The commission felt in that meeting that the detailing was too complex for a secondary ADU structure, that the ADU read more as a primary structure rather than a secondary structure, and that the ADU design did not clearly relate to the primary structure or other secondary structures in the district. The applicant has revised their submittal, and that is shown on the far right. So pictured here is the site plan, the first and second floor plans for this ADU. The ADU will be 36 feet by 19 feet and will be 24 feet in height. It will be located at the back of the lot, and the floor plan page also shows that the proposed windows on the ADU will be inset 2 inches. So per the commission's comments, the applicant has simplified the detailing and removed the stepped parapet on the northwest elevation, but has retained the slant mansard-like roof on the northwest elevation. The primary roof will be a flat roof form with a mansard roof dormers and a hip roof bay on this northwest elevation. The flat roof will be clad in a membrane roofing material. The mansard roof will be clad in a fiber cement half round shingle siding material, and the dormers and bay windows on the northwest elevation will be clad in standing seam metal roofing material with a matte black finish. The southeast alley elevation will feature hip roof canopies over the garage door and over the rear balcony. These canopies will also be clad in that standing seam metal roofing material with a matte black finish. The northwest elevation will be clad in summit brick in the color medium red, and the brick will wrap the corners of the building, and the southwest and northeast and southeast elevations will be clad, and again, that fiber cement half round shingle material that's on the slant or mansard-like roof. The building will feature weather shield double hung aluminum clad wood windows. The applicant is proposing a porthole style aluminum clad wood window on the northeast elevation. And the applicant is also proposing 2 types of service doors for the building, the northwest, northeast, and southeast elevations will feature single panel, 3/4 light Therma-Tru fiberglass doors. The northwest and the southeast will have transoms above those doors. And then the southwest elevation will have a 2-panel quarter light Therma-Tru fiberglass door. The applicant will be required to spec simulated divided lights with a spacer bar for all divided light doors on the building. And then finally, the garage door will be a Stihl Amar Hillcrest carriage house style door. The applicant is proposing to install a custom black steel balcony on the southeast elevation over the garage door. And they're also proposing simple gooseneck style lights on the southwest, northeast, and southeast elevations. The applicant is proposing to use a simple orb wall sconce on the northwest elevation at the entrance. And then to close this slide out, the drawings show that the addition of 2 arched custom pine wood gates at the alley. So staff would like to note that the buildings on this block are very tight together, and the ADU will be only slightly visible from public vantage points. While staff feel that visibility does factor into the overall impact of the ADU, staff base their review of previous commission deliberation as well as the design guidelines that don't talk really about that visibility. So staff feel that the proposed ADU draws more from the surrounding eclectic style primary structures in the district rather than relating to the Italianate primary structure on the lot or other 2-story secondary structures in the district. Historic secondary structures in this district tend to be simple boxy forms with gable, hip, or cross gable roofs. While not all historic secondary structures replicate the primary structure in form and appearance in this district, many of the historic 2-story structures have a simple and consistent form that relate to other secondary structures in the district context. So staff feel that the proposed ADU does not relate to the primary structure, nor does it relate to the historic secondary structures in this district. And the applicant included in their materials several examples of secondary structures as well as primary structures in this district to provide some context. And as you can see, not all of them match that primary structure, but there is simple form between all of them, and there is a relationship between those secondary structures. So during the July 11th meeting, the commission expressed that they would not be supportive of an oversimplified box or an overly complex replica. The commission discussion centered around creating a balanced design that draws from primary and secondary structure or the primary structure and secondary structure context and is of its own time, and it does not compete with the historic structures in the district. Staff feel that the applicant's revisions have not met the intent of the commission's comments or the design guidelines and have created an oversimplified design with a form that does not relate to the primary structure on the site or the secondary structures in the district. Staff is recommending denial of this application, citing guideline 4.19. Additionally, staff did receive 2 email public comments. Those were forwarded on to you. One of the comments was in opposition to the proposed ADU, and the other was in support of the ADU. A copy of those comments again were emailed to you on 1/4.
Jesse, thank you. Commissioners, do you have any questions for Jesse? No? Great. Jesse, thank you. Are the applicants here in person? Okay, great. Yeah. So yeah, have a seat and whenever you're ready.
Yep.
Oh, and you have 2 minutes to give your presentation, and at the beginning of that, please give your name and address for our records.
Excellent. Hello, Commissioners. I'm Jeff Baker, 2422 Champa Street. And Jim, go ahead.
Oh, and I'm Jim Denton, 2432 South Street.
Thank you.
All right, thanks for meeting with us again. So we started off after the last hearing and went and reviewed your YouTube video and listened to all the commissioners' comments that went through, and we tried to address every single one of those. I did put some of the comments on here, subtle reductions in detail could make this an acceptable building. It does not have to be a box, and they don't have to get rid of the sloped roof. I think it just has to do with having a little too much frosting on it. Another comment, I actually find this application really refreshing. We have seen so many boxes and ADUs that are identical. I think 20 years from now, we're going to go back and go, that was a mistake, that there is not character there. I can actually read the guidelines and find where this building can become compatible. We did address removing that step gable roof. And there are 7 features that we believe that relate to the primary structure and other Curtis Park district character defining features: the bay window, the medium red brick, the shingle siding, the 1/1 windows, the flat Italianate roof, the simplified brick corbel bracketing on the front facing roof corners, and boxy form all directly relate to the Italianate primary home. All the frosting's been removed, including all the corbel bracketing, the Dutch step gable, the brick corbeling details. Form and materials have been significantly simplified. And then just if you want to look at some of those elevations, you can see the form is almost exactly identical. If you look at some of the images that we've shown, especially some of these overhead ones that show the entire building and the roof, they look exactly identical form, building form. We do have that front sloped face on the yard side, non-visible elevation. And that is it's not a true mansard because it doesn't wrap all the way around, but it is a light saving and mass reducing feature that we put into there. And as Jesse mentioned, we did go ahead and collect some of these existing carriage houses, and I wanted to compare apples to apples, not sheds or garages that were built in the 1950s, because we're kind of in a challenging time here, and I think you guys understand that as well, that there's not a lot of ADU precedent, and some of the stuff that is precedent we don't necessarily want to use. So I tried to find buildings that were built as what we would call ADUs today, so true living carriage houses. And these examples do show different detailing, different roof forms, and that's where we compiled some of this stuff. So if we go through some of Jesse's comments, really the one that I just wanted to address is that I do feel like it's really the form and the massing. I do feel like the form and massing does fit the primary structure, although as shown in Curtis Park, not all secondary structures relate to the primary structure, and she did mention that. I also want to mention that we have letters of support from all the surrounding neighbors, letters of support from Curtis Park Design Review. I also received an email from Sue Glassmacher, previous chair of Curtis Park Design Review. She agreed with me. She said, you did everything the commission wanted on this ADU. The ADU looks good. In my opinion, it looks better for the ADU. I think the design should be used several times over, in, and beyond Curtis Park with a few modifications and trim and materials. I believe this can look modern too. I'm so sick of boring flat roofed ADUs and homes, ditto for the black brick. Happy New Year and wishing you great success as you make Denver ADUs interesting and beautiful. So that's really where we're coming from right now. We do feel like we really paid attention. I bet 3 or 4 times went through the entire video and watched that, picked out details that you guys had mentioned. So we do feel like we did address that. Stop for now and let you go ahead.
Oh,
Jim.
sure. Yeah, I guess I'd like to point out from an owner's perspective. Me and my wife own 2432. We are the current stewards, as we like to think of 2432, and you know, the several things in this design are, you know, within confines also of what the property is, right? Right now, there's nothing built there in the backyard. So this will reduce the backyard greatly. And we're planning on living there for quite some time. And so we are trying to maximize the amount of space inside, you know, with the bay window and the sloped mass reduction at the top, to also to provide a lot of space inside, but also to provide light and usability on the outside, because that backyard is important to us. it is a postage stamp in these, hopefully, one day when this is built. So, you know, mass reduction is very important. Also, Hillary and I are very against the idea of building a box. We do not want to build a box. It would be easy for us to get that approved based off of other things that we've seen approved, and we understand that we are asking for a little bit more here, but that's just not sustainable to us, and we don't think that that's actually the in spirit of the neighborhood. The neighborhood is built of eclectic structures. They're well built and they all have character. And we are not trying to impede on them. We are trying to add to that story as much as we can. And we don't think a clapboard box does add to that story. So yeah, I very much hope that you all change your minds today. We have put effort into this over the months, and yeah, I think that it's going to improve not only our own property, of course, but the alleyway, which is important, and the block and the surrounding neighborhood. So, and I really firmly believe that. I think that's all I need to say. You know, I said a bunch of stuff the first time, but.
Yeah, so I guess
Yeah,
on the final note, we'd ask for your approval.
Yes, please.
Thank you.
Humbly.
Thank you, gentlemen. Commissioners, do you have any questions for our applicants? No? Okay, well done. You can go back and have a seat. All right, we are now ready for public comments. If there are any public comments on this design review project. Anybody here in person? Or to give a public comment? Okay, absolutely. Do we have anybody online? Taylor, can you tell? No, okay, great. All right. And you know the drill, name and address, 2 minutes, thank you.
Hello, Commissioners. Keith Pryor, 2418 Champa Street. I'm the chair of the Curtis Park Design Review Committee. I went around the neighborhood and there's over 15 ADUs that have different roof forms than their primary structures. That's both historic as well as ones that this commission has previously approved. The ones that I sent to you in a separate email that I was representing for my own personal piece were the ones that were located at 3008 and 3028 Arapahoe Street, which are very similar to this exact design, except that they're a straight box. And so from the alley, the second story is a bird feather design on both of those ADUs that were approved. And so from the alley, these will look exactly like those 2 ADUs that were previously approved by the commission. So the only roof form that is really in discrepancy is that front elevation roof form, because the rest of it is a square box and is not that of a mansard. It is that of a basically light reducing massing form for that backyard for light into their rear element. The commission, the design review committee previously supported this design, and we also now present and support this design as it has been simplified. The majority of the committee did support this to begin with, and they still support that. There was one in opposition, but this is a very solid design. Again, like we said, it does not necessarily, the pieces that we find are that it is down within the district. There are examples within the district, and there are new constructions that this commission multiple times, over 15 times, has approved within our district. And so this has been simplified per the guidelines and per the comments from the staff, and we do ask that you approve this ADU today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Keith. All right, there wasn't anybody, there isn't anybody online.
There is now.
Oh, there is, okay,
Go up, sorry.
all right, that's fine.
It's actually Ashley, just an FYI. Oh, that person? Yeah. Okay, Ashley, you should be able to unmute and turn your camera on whenever you're ready.
Hello, Ashley, can you hear us?
Second. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can definitely hear you. Yeah, Ashley, you'll have 2 minutes to make your comment.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to make sure you received my written comments that I had presented earlier. A
Yeah.
request to deny the application.
Yes, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. So you'll have 2 minutes and please start with your name and address.
If you've received them, that was my verification that I just wanted to make sure you had received them.
I certainly did. Yes.
Thank
I
you.
see a lot of nodding heads. Yep, thank you, Ashley. All right, anybody else? Nope. Okay. Excellent. Staff, did you have any other additional comments? No? Okay, great. Thank you, Jesse. All right, commissioners, then it's time to go on into deliberation. What are your thoughts?
Okay, I can,
George?
looking at the two plans and the two different, the sequence of the drawings, I can say that, one, it is simplified. The Mansard style formula is much simpler than the stepped gable. Things like brackets around the belt course are gone. There are other small features of wedding cake that aren't there. I think the intent of the applicant is to be is much more shown by this effort on the plan. It's also so hidden in the way it is, and there will be more ADUs to further complicate that streetscape, but I would have to call the plan as presented now as, if this is coining a phrase, appropriately eclectic. So I would stand to support it.
All right. Okay, George, thank you. The thoughts?
Yeah, in looking at design guideline 4.19, it talks about being compatible with and subordinate to the primary structure and the surrounding historic context. And I think that this new design, well, let me backtrack. I think concerns that I had with the previous design were that the complexity of the decorative elements were making it difficult to feel like it was subordinate to. I can see compatibility in the sense that it's not an overly complex roof. Of course, we have a very simple roof on the primary structure. We have just the one face that is anything other than flat. And then as far as being subordinate to, I think the removal a lot of those decorative elements does make it more subordinate to this simple Italianate building, which I think was the main concern for me, was how do these things relate, or is one kind of standing out more than the other? So for those reasons, although I appreciate staff's concerns and kind of looking at our previous comments, I don't find a reason to find it not meeting design guideline 4.19. So I would support the application.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, I think Erica's comments are pretty much exactly what I was thinking, looking through this. Really to add, I guess one question, a smaller detail. I probably should have asked this with the staff explanation was happening. Light fixtures, Denver does not allow any light fixtures that shine upward, to my understanding, right? Is that something that Landmark views and comments on? Okay, so I think at very least we should make a
So-
condition about the light
Yeah.
fixture.
The zoning code has started really enforcing the cutoff fixtures. There are a lot of fixtures that we have approved in the past that don't meet that requirement. And they've definitely caused issues. Unfortunately, no one else checks for the fixtures other than when you're on site inspections.
Right.
So when you're going through building or zoning review, that's not really something they're checking for. So it's kind of a lot of the burden has landed on us to to confirm that, and that is in the zoning code. We do have guidelines regarding light fixtures, and we usually, generally speaking, require downlighting.
So should we move to approve this application, a condition like Larry suggested for regarding the light fixtures for vehicles?
You can look at guideline, I believe it's 5.18. Will provide you some guidance on light fixtures. I'm doing this off the top of my head, so I could be
Doing pretty well.
really wrong.
Okay, well, they're looking for that. Nick or Gary, did you have any thoughts?
I guess I support the consensus. I mean, I still have reservations about the sloping facade because it does create an impression that that building does not relate to the primary building in the way we would normally like it to relate. But I think because it's not that visible, I think I'll go along with the evolving consensus that the moves that have been made to simplify the design have addressed many of our concerns from the past review.
Okay. Nick, anything?
No, I agree with everything that's been stated by my fellow commissioners. We just have a question, I guess, for staff, and relative to our inclination to approve this application as presented. And I just wonder, in light of that, if staff would have any further conditions that they would like considered that were not necessarily discussed.
No, I don't have any further conditions. Mainly, my recommendation was based off past deliberation and the guidelines, and I didn't feel like it quite met past deliberations, but if the commission is comfortable with it, that's fine. I did want to ask, the wall sconce is a frosted glass, and I thought that the code was specific to like exposed light bulbs and like direct light. So it's not a clear glass over that sconce. So I think that it does meet those requirements.
Okay. I believe that's correct.
Yeah, if you can see your hand through the glass, then it doesn't meet and
But
they
this
can't
is
pass
Light
it.
pollution is light pollution.
All new.
My understanding
Yeah,
about like
this
dark
is-
skies in general.
This is fairly new to us.
Yeah.
As a thing that we're trying to catch. And, I will say it doesn't look like there are guidelines referenced in your motion other than 4.19.
They're in the, it's gonna be in the upper section.
In the motion, so make sure that you are comfortable with that guideline, or if there are additional guidelines you want to add, because you are, sounds like recommending something different than the staff recommendation.
And I just looked this up, 5.18C says design and orient light fixtures to provide down lighting for residential buildings. So
All right. So no additional conditions. And so Larry, you mentioned the light fixtures. It sounds to me like everybody is pretty much in agreement.
I mean, how do you out-simplify and Italianate?
So do I hear a motion? And in said motion, we should consider that condition.
Bishop?
Okay.
Madam Chair, I move to approve application number 2023 COA-654 for the ADU at 2432 Stout Street as per design guidelines, character defining features for the Curtis Park Historic District, presented testimony, submitted documentation, and information provided in the staff report.
Okay, did you want to do the condition for the light fixture?
I need a second first, and then
Oh,
we can
okay.
discuss the motion.
Second,
I'll second that.
Gary has seconded.
And then I'd like to add a condition that the exterior light fixtures comply with guideline 5.18C and the Denver zoning code.
Do you accept?
Sure.
Okay, all right.
I
I'd also like to reference the actual design guidelines that we're finding that it meets. You didn't specify
Oh.
those, so I was going to say 4.18 through 4.20.
Of course.
Do you accept the friend, so is that a friendly amendment?
Yes.
And is that
Do you-
accepted?
Is that accepted? Do you
Yes,
accept the
of
friendly
course.
amendment?
Yes,
Do you accept,
yes.
okay. Friendly amendment from Erica has been accepted. So we're ready to take a vote. All in favor of aye?
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? All right, then it passed, the project passes with the condition about the light fixture. All right, thank you, everybody. Thanks, Jesse.
Thank
So,
you.
oh, yes, and good luck. All right, our next project is 2022-CA-653 at 822 26th Street, and this is also in Curtis Park, and Crystal is our staff person. Crystal, you can start with the.
So I have to control the slides today. I'm not in the official Zoom app for some reason.
Sounds good.
This is very cloudy. How weird.
Camera.
Is it weird?
It just looks cloudy, like you're
So
coming
it's
out of
not
a
just
dream.
me, because I was thinking, man, Julie, you gotta get new glasses again. Okay.
No, it's not you. Okay. All right. So this is for the property at 823 26th Street, which is located in Curtis Park H Historic District and is proposed for a vacant lot. The left side of the screen here, you can see the location of this vacant lot at the corner of Champa Street and 26th Street. And on the right is an overview of the site and the surrounding context. So here's an existing streetscape study that was included in the application. There were a few pages, but I just used this one. The applicant is proposing to build a new 5-unit, 2.5-story row house infill structure with new 1-story garage structure with 1 parking space for each unit facing towards the alley at the rear of the lot. The new row house infill structure will face onto 26th Street, and each unit will have a front entrance with porch feature facing the street. And each unit will have a roof deck and half-story space on top. Next slide. So here's the compatibility demonstration that was included. The new proposed structure has a flat roof like other Italianate styles seen in the district, as you can see here. The overall mass of the row house structure is subdivided into smaller bays with the use of window bays like the ones found here and entry porches. Individual units express typical historic proportions and boxy building forms found in the district. Next slide. So here's the site plan. The new row house infill structure follows established setback patterns for row houses that are seen in the district. And all units will have these entry porches facing onto 26th Street with garages facing onto the alley following district patterns. Next slide. So here's the proposed site elevation facing onto Champa Street. The building massing has been articulated to have a 2-story design with rooftop decks and a 3rd floor addition that's set back from the street facades, making it less visible. Here you can see the vertical and horizontal articulation techniques that are proposed to break up the massing, as well as the addition of some decorative brickwork. So here's the front elevation facing onto 26th Street. The new row house structure is approximately 29 feet 6 inches in height total, with the front 2-story portion of the structure at approximately 25 feet in height, which appears to match other building heights for historic row houses structures in the district. Windows are grouped on the window bays, similar to historic structures, and floor-to-floor heights appear similar also to others found in the district. Properties at the 3 other surrounding corners are 2 to 3 stories in height, and the new structure will have similar heights and proportions. Here at the top of the slide, at the right, you can see the structure where they have the administrative adjustment that they're asking for both plate encroachment into the rear 35% of the zone lot. The Denver zoning code states that the commission must find that development conforming to the requirements of this code would have an adverse impact upon the historic character of the district or historic structure. Staff supports the administrative adjustment as the design of the 5th unit on the row houses would be altered in a way that does not match typical row house multifamily structures that are found in the district.
and meets the requirements, meeting the requirements of the code would have an adverse impact upon the structure and the district. Additionally, staff wanted to point out that, I forgot to put this in the staff report, but some of staff had mixed reactions to the window and small metal panel treatment at the second floor, just above the first floor porch. Some of staff felt that the window and metal panel here do not relate well to other historic row houses in the district. While other staff members felt that this was just a modern detail that helps differentiate the row house structure to make it more recognizable as modern infill. So staff would ask that the commission maybe make some comments on this aspect of the design for the applicant team, so they can potentially address any changes for phase 2. Next slide. Here's the alley elevation. As you can see, the one-story garage structure is right here along the alley. Each one will have one garage, and you can see the side elevation. Yeah, next slide. Okay, and here is the rear elevation. As you can see, the brick will wrap the first unit closest to Champa Street at the far right. And the first floor units will also have a canopy cover at their rear patio. And then here again, you can see that location for the administrative adjustment request at the far left for the bulk plate encroachments. Next slide. And then here's some isometric views for the proposal. At the top is that front view at 26th Street, and at the bottom corner is that side elevation facing onto Champa Street. Here's a view of the 26th Street elevation looking towards Champa. At the right side, you can see those proposed garages along the alley, and also how the third floor will be set back from the front facade. And finally, a view towards Champa Street and 26th Street, right at the corner. The new 5-unit row house structure and garages meet design guidelines 4.9 through 4.112 and 4.15 through 4.17. And appear to match historic proportions and heights found in the district. Therefore, staff is recommending approval of the phase 1 application for mass form of context, as well as recommending approval of the administrative adjustment.
Crystal, thank you. Commissioners, any questions for Crystal? No? Okay, great. Thank you very much. All right, we don't have anyone in person here, so I'm assuming the applicants are with us virtually. I know, right? I don't do.
It's probably people raising their hands, but they normally jump to the top when that happens.
So that's one of the applicants there, Zeke.
Sorry, the mouse is so fast.
You should be able to unmute and turn your camera on whenever you're ready.
Hi, Zeke. Can you hear
Hi.
us?
Right. Hey, how's everyone? Yeah, can you guys hear me okay?
We can indeed. Hey, when you are ready, you'll have 10 minutes to make your presentation. And if you could please begin with your name and your address.
Yep. Zeke Freeman with Root Architecture. Address is 23416 Navajo Road, Indian Hills. Yeah, so Crystal did a great job of kind of going over the overall project and proposed scope of work. So I won't go spend too much time in detail on it. Mainly here to answer any questions. Yeah, can cover any kind of design questions or aspects you guys have. Specifically, the window panel got brought up. Would point out on the elevations, on the 2D CAD elevations, there's kind of a shadow line that makes that look a little bit like glass. It actually is a metal panel, as you can see in the 3D rendering here. So it would be an 8-foot full light glass metal panel, and then a simple glass window up above. The intent on the project is to have a really well crafted, simple Italianate style row home. we've taken the time to make sure that all of the articulations and detail really add to the character and fit into the neighborhood. The administrative adjustment that we're looking at in the upper right corner, we did look at several options early on, and with input both from staff and the neighborhood group in our initial massing of this project. We did elect that pursuing this 5-unit option with a full 3rd story is really important to the project and to the character, to keep the rhythm of the row homes coming across. We looked at some options to lower that down, and it just creates a lot of awkwardness and oddity. So, we think this really creates a really nice, simple, symmetrical design. So we appreciate staff support on that. The 3rd floor, we've made efforts to keep that subordinate so that it's set back, probably a dark siding, and then really kind of bring forward a really nice brick across the majority of the mass of the project. The brick wraps around, obviously the front 2 street facing facades and the alley side. And then it wraps around the corner here, as you can see, along the full width of the full unit before transitioning to a siding that's much more hidden kind of in the rear portion of the building. On this side, we did receive some feedback along the way to really try to dress this side up in a way that gives some articulations. The function behind this doesn't make sense to have windows where we've got that brick detailing, but we thought this was a nice way to add some character to the building and then put light in where it makes sense. So this side has, still addresses the street, although it's the side of the project. And then obviously we have the main facade around the corner. So so that's kind of an overview. Glad to answer any questions. Thanks for all of staff's and the neighborhood's input on this project. So it's been a really fun project.
Great, Zeke, thank you. Commissioners, do you have any questions for the applicant?
Yeah.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Could you describe a little bit more in detail what the intent, I know this is just mass inform, but preview to the next round. On the west elevation, the brick detail in the center bay, and what the precedent for that is, and really what it's constituted of? Are those brick shapes that are protruding? Is that an 8-inch standard brick?
That'd be a standard brick, and then we would just articulate that out in a like a 1/2 inch offset, and so that'll create a shadow line. Both for
It won't be as pronounced as the way it comes across in the elevation.
Yeah, probably not. It's a little bit difficult in a Revit CAD elevation. It should look closer to the rendering, which has shows a little bit of a shadow line, but less of, so it'll be just a subtle detail.
Got it. Thank you.
All right, anybody else? Question for Zeke? All right, Zeke, thank you very much. Doesn't look like there was any more questions for you, so appreciate you giving your presentation. Public comments? Anyone? If you are joining by phone, you can dial *9 on your phone, or you can raise your hand. You can also email landmark@denvergov.org. And if you're on Zoom joining us virtually, of course, you can raise your hand. We have one in-person public comment. Keith, you got 2 minutes.
Sure. Keith Pryor, 2418 Champa Street, Chair of the Curtis Park Neighbors Design Review Committee. We did review this. There was unanimous support of the committee for this project, and also unanimous support for the administrative adjustment for that rear 35% setback. So we really feel that that's critical to make this project work. This project is very very much a part of the fabric of Curtis Park. All of our numbered streets typically have row homes. They bookend all of our blocks on numbered streets, and the houses sit back, and the row homes on the numbered streets sit all the way to the sidewalk. So this is a very common pattern for the neighborhood, with having that row home all the way up to the sidewalk on the main street, and having the row homes themselves face the numbered street. And so that really fits well with the character of the district, and it just fits really, really well. The double bayed Italianate is obviously one that is very common to the district, and one that we're very excited to see. We feel that it does a great job on really, picking up details within the district, yet not actually replicating. The window itself, there is definitely, I think it makes it more of its time. It delineates that of its period. It does provide light into there. And having this as a brick facade is really fitting within Curtis Park. The third story setback, that half story, is really well recessed, and we feel that it's not going to be visible from the street. And we definitely support the modern amenities of what most people are looking for today, and support this design. So all in all, it's a great design. The design committee unanimously supported it. We asked the commission to do so as well. Thank you.
Keith, thank you. All right, are there any public comments virtually? Taylor? Sorry. Nope. All righty, staff, any other comments? No, Crystal? Okay, great, thank you. Okay, commissioners, let us deliberate. What are your thoughts on this? And this, of course, this is phase one, mass form and context.
I support staff's recommendation on this. I think it's a nice design, in line with the guidelines. And then, in terms of specific feedback for the spandrel glass panel that connect the two, I think it's a nice feature. I do think it's in the spirit of the guidelines relative to a modern interpretation of what's going on in the context. And then the architect addressed my concern about the west elevation as well. So I'm supportive.
Excellent, all right. Any other comments? Erica?
No, Nick addressed everything that I wanted to.
Well done, Nick.
I was just writing down, meets letter and spirit of the guidelines, so clairvoyance here.
All right.
I do have just one comment. I agree generally. The canopy over the rear patios comes right up to the front facade, and I think if that could be set back to some extent, I think that would be more, it would make it feel less of a side elevation and a little bit more of a front facing elevation on the channel.
So is that a friendly comment?
Guess, yeah, it's a question of, is that something that we want to make a condition of, since it is part of the form?
Okay, yeah.
I don't know what other people think.
What are your thoughts?
I understand what you're saying, but I think my inclination is to let it stand the way it is, especially as it relates to the continuity of the unit design and the replication of the unit design to create one there that does, I mean, to what degree are you proposing that be held back from the west elevation? Would it eliminate that balcony entirely from that unit?
I'm just thinking like a foot.
Oh, a foot.
So it's not right.
Got it. It's just a detail, cleaning up the detail.
Yeah, I guess maybe that is a bit more of a detail. I don't know.
And for clarity, it's not a second floor balcony, it's simply a patio cover.
Right,
Oh,
there's not
okay.
a balcony at all. It's
Got
just
it. So those are
The Juliet.
Juliet.
Yeah.
Don't worry, that confused us too for a second.
I would support, and I don't know if we need to say it now or just say if it's a detail that we would like to see that in the next phase, but I would support that.
Yeah, is that a design detail? What do you think?
Just letting them know and putting it on the record to set it in a little bit.
So a friendly amendment at the, or not, a friendly comment at this
that
point.
they should take into consideration.
Good with that?
I agree. It's never a good idea to have two materials join in the same plane, and setting it back a few inches or a foot is a good move.
Okay, great, all right. Any other comments, so generally supported project? Okay, do I hear a motion?
Madam Chair, I move to approve application number 2023-COA 653 for the Phase 1 mass forming context at 823 26th Street as per design guidelines 4.9 through 4.12, 4.15 through 4.17, character defining features for the Curtis Park Historic District, presented testimony, submitted documentation, and information provided in the staff report. I also move to approve the administrative adjustment for bulk plane encroachment into the rear 35% of the zone lot per section 12.4.5.2B for application 2023-COA-653 at 823 26th Street as per design guidelines. 4.9 through 4.12, 4.15 through 4.17, character defining features for Curtis Park Historic District, presented testimony, submitted documentation, and information provided in the staff report.
Thank you, Larry, second.
Second.
Nick has seconded. All right, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? All right, it has been approved. Thanks, Keith.
Thanks, guys.
All righty, we are on to our next project, which is 2023-COA-652 at 155 Humboldt Street, and that is in the Country Club District, and that is Brittany's project.
So our next application, I think it's the lighting in here.
Yeah.
Is for a rear addition at 155 Humboldt Street, which is a contributing structure in the Country Club Historic District. It is a small one-story Mission Revival style structure, and you, the commission, has reviewed an addition to the structure previously for a large two-story addition that involved over 40% demolition to the home in January of 2023, and that was denied by the commission. The applicant then revised the two-story side rear addition design and represented that to the commission in June of 2023. However, the commission felt that the proposed two-story addition did overwhelm the historic structure and was not subordinate to the historic structure, and therefore denied that addition as well. So this has been significantly reduced in scale and scope. So here is the existing property outlined in red. This is a T-shaped building where it is a little bit longer in terms of width along the street, and then it gets narrower to the rear. It does currently have an attached garage that is located on the north side of the property, which is this structure here. And then this is an accessory outbuilding type structure. The date of construction of this accessory structure is unclear. It may be within the period of significance, it may not. However, at the prior meetings, the commission did comment that this accessory structure and the landscaping did contribute to the overall feel and setting of the home. So in the prior submittal, this structure was proposed for demolition, and it will be preserved in this revised submittal. It is a bit hard to get photographs of this home, so this is the front facade here. So again, here is the existing site plan. There is a 361 square foot attached garage. And then the property does have a solid masonry wall surrounding it and a large front patio. The front of the property will be preserved, and all work is located towards the rear of the property. So here is the proposed site plan. So the applicant is proposing to demolish that attached garage and construct a new garage. The new garage is a little bit larger. It's about 500 square feet, and it will have a gable roof form that is concealed with a mission style parapet along the alley. And then the applicant is proposing to construct a new connector addition at the rear of the property that is around 200 some square feet. And again, that existing outdoor structure on the south side of the property will be retained, and there are very minimal changes proposed to the rest of the structure. There are some changes proposed to egress windows on the north and south side of the property, but they are all interior lot alterations. So here is that proposed demolition plan showing the demolition of the existing garage. The demolition calculations have been significantly reduced for this project. So it was previously proposed to be over 40%, and currently demolition is proposed for 12.3 square feet of the exterior walls and 1.25% of the exterior roof structure. So staff are supportive of the demolition scope for this particular property. So the new attached garage will be for a 2-car garage and is placed in a similar location to the existing attached garage, as you can see in this plan here. This is the roof plan. Again, most of the historic structure will be preserved, and demolition to the roof is very limited in terms of this revised project scope, as you can see here. There will be some demolition to this outdoor structure on the north side of it, just to accommodate that new garage and addition. Again, it's unclear when that was constructed, but overall the structure will remain intact. So here is the front facade. Really, there is not too many significant changes. The existing garage does stick out just a skosh on the north side of the property, and that is the major scope of demolition there. And then just kind of I guess pergola shade structure on the south side that is proposed for demolition, but no major changes to the front facade along Humboldt Street. This is the alley elevation. This is where the majority of demolition will occur. Again, it's 347 square feet, and this counts for a total of 12.3 square feet of the entire exterior walls. And we are supportive of this proposed demolition scope as it is located at the rear and will not negatively impact the massing form or structure of the existing structure. That's that pergola structure that is proposed for demolition, and then I guess that's a gutter that you see on the front elevation that is proposed to be demolished as well. So here is the proposed addition. Again, the garage will have that gable roof form to shed water onto the north and south side of the property, but will be concealed with a mission style parapet roof. The design is slightly different than the existing structure. However, staff feels that it is compatible enough with the surrounding context and the existing structure, and does help conceal that gable roof, as this is primarily a flat roof appearance structure. And then the new rear connector addition, which you see here, that will be totally flat roofed, also concealed with a parapet. There will be some shed roofs with tile covering the windows on the rear of the structure, and then also covering the patio doors. There is some shed roof tile structures on this home, and the tile is proposed to match those existing tiles. However, I have not been provided manufacturer specs, so that is one of the conditions of our approval, is that we be provided those manufacturer specs. Additionally, the site wall will be expanded. It is a stucco site wall. It will be constructed of CMU block and covered with stucco, and will blend in with the surrounding context. Just a simple steel roll-up door proposed for that garage. This is the north elevation. On this elevation, these 8 windows will be demolished and replaced with new double hung windows that are aluminum clad wood. Looking at the majority of the windows on this structure, I do not believe that these are original window openings. The arch form is much wider than the historic windows, and many of the historic windows are casement windows. And then additionally, if you look at the historic mullion profiles, they don't seem to match the mullion profiles of these 8 windows here. So staff are supportive of this alteration to these windows. No change will be made to the opening size or proportions. They're just replacing new windows in these openings. So it will not be a significant change to this north elevation. There are some notations here that the windows in the basement will be replaced. It's unclear to staff if they will require larger egress light wells. So we are asking for clarification on the egress and light well project scope. However, generally speaking, staff reviews alterations to basement windows administratively, even if it is more than 3 windows, and does not forward that project scope to the commission, particularly when it's on side interior facades, as this is proposed to be. It does look like that they're simply just cutting down the existing windows and replacing some of those windows to provide additional light into the basement space. And then you can see that garage that is proposed to be demolished, and then that rear wall as well. This is the south elevation, or sorry, this is the same north elevation. So sorry. So you can see that those alterations to the basement windows where they just appear to be enlarged to provide additional light. But again, we are asking for additional information on the egress and light wells there. All new windows will be aluminum clad wood, which is appropriate for use on the structure, and will have divided lights to match the existing historic windows. We are requiring that it be a simulated divided light with spacer bar, which the applicant has provided specifications on. So in terms of the new garage will be clad in a reclaimed brick that will be painted white. The existing historic structure is clad in a rough coat stucco. So the new garage will be differentiated from the historic structure with a change in material. This is the south elevation. They will be altering a window opening on the south elevation, just making a larger window towards the rear. This is a minimal change that is not visible from the public right of way. And again, staff are supportive of that project scope. Here is that outdoor structure that is to be demolished to accommodate that new addition. And again, similar to the north elevation, some alterations to the basement windows as well. So here is the proposed south elevation. The addition is not inset from the wall plane of the historic structure significantly, but because there is a change in material, there will be a very, very slight transition. I know our guidelines typically talk about 4 inches, but staff feel that as the front facade of the structure is wider on the street and it gets narrower to the rear, it is subordinate to the historic structure. It does step down in height, and there is a change in material. So we do feel that it is differentiated from the historic structure without that significant change in wall plane. But again, there will be a very slight one due to the difference in materials. And again, that shed roof over those patio doors, that is similar to the front facade. Again, just asking for those material specs on the tile specifically. The garage roof will be clad in an asphalt shingle, but it will really only be visible from the north and south elevations. So I do have some questions over some of the details in the application materials. So as I stated previously, the existing structure is clad in this existing rough coat stucco. And some notations, this existing rough coat stucco is noted to be replaced, principally in this materials page. And in the elevations is noted to remain. This is likely the historic material. So we would like that historic material and finish to remain intact and only be repaired where necessary if it's damaged. So we would like some clarifications on the existing historic structure stucco project scope. Additionally, the historic structure has stone sills on the windows, as you can see in this photograph here. Some of the material notations for the new windows note that the windows will have cast stone sills or concrete sills. Either material is appropriate, and it does again provide that additional differentiation from the historic structure. However, that material needs to be explicitly stated if it's going to be cast stone or concrete. All the windows in the new addition will be inset into the wall plane, and they'll be inset 3 5/8 of an inch. So here are just some isometrics of that proposed addition, showing where the demolition will occur and where the new addition is proposed. And generally speaking, we are recommending approval of this application with some clarifications on the stucco project scope, the roof tiles for the shed roofs on the addition, and then also the windowsill material.
Thank you, Brittany. Commissioners, do you have any questions for Brittany?
I'm sorry if I missed this, but you were talking about the basement egress
Right.
and also needing information on that. Is
Oh,
that
yes,
a
sorry,
condition?
I
Yeah, I
did
didn't
not-
see that. Yeah, those
Okay.
weren't that.
Yes, that will need to be a fourth condition.
Okay, so provide specifications for the basement egress
Yes,
openings.
that will work. Okay, and wells.
And
Wells.
Openings and wells.
Yes.
Okay, all right. All right, no worries. Any other questions for Brittany? No? Okay, great. Brittany, thank you very much. Is our applicant ready to give their presentation? There's a hand up. Hello?
It takes a moment because it like kicks you out of the meeting and then it puts you back in the meeting. It's really weird.
Hello?
Only 517.
There you are, yeah. There you are. Hi,
We're here.
Yeah, great. You will have 10 minutes to give your presentation and please begin with your name and address for our records.
John Mattingly, 517 East Bayard Avenue, Denver, 80209.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brittany, for the thorough review the third time. Ownership of this property did change hands between my last submittal, which is the reason for the drastic change. And so there was a few notes from a previous submittal that we were trying to cull through and get off to separate the two projects. So this is indeed a different owner now and a very different project. So the comments that I think I would like to address, we did choose to use a reclaimed hard pressed brick on the addition. You know, this is a solid masonry building with a concrete plaster on it. And so we'll be setting that brick back about 3/4 of an inch from the plaster. So it just, there's a distinction there where the plaster is not, but it looks like it could be. I've done that once before and it turned out really nice. So it still feels authentic, but it is a distinction. And the stucco on the original building, the note that's correct is that we're not planning to disturb it or change it. And so we'll correct that conflicting information on sheet L009 or L025. And then on the egress on sheet L009, you can see where we're proposing to change the window wells because the ones that are there now are shallow and not very deep. And so where we need egress, we added one in the front bedroom, which is on the northeast corner. And this, you know, does live kind of behind that whole front terrace. It's not really visible from the street, but we do need to build that out so that we can get, you know, egress there, and that would be done in a formed concrete. And I think what we'll do is go over that with the stucco, in my opinion, to match the existing building so that there's uniformity of material there. So the other wells are of that same material. So the change that you would notice is that they are just pushed out further into the yard slightly to meet the egress. You'll notice that those two wells that are in view on the south side of the main historic volume also live behind that entire front terrace area, which I don't believe is historic, but we're keeping it anyway. But those other wells live behind that also. So none of those will be seen whatsoever. And then the last two are on the north western end of the building. There's a bedroom down there. And there are two wells there that are being pushed out. Again, not visible from the street whatsoever. I think those were the primary comments that needed clarity. Oh, the roof tile. It's an original concrete clay or a clay S tile that's on that building. And it's really only on the front entry and on the little visors. And so I found a similar clay S tile that we'll be using on the visor, and I'll submit the photograph of those, but they essentially match the original roof tiles. And I want to set them on that visor so that you actually will see the purlins underneath the rafters with the tile resting on top of that. So a pretty authentic detail and a little bit lighter weight than if we had to build the roof up. The sills themselves we're proposing as cast stone so that they are different than the other sills. And so we'll fix that conflict in labeling. And that again, it's just so the addition, there is a distinction between the two. I actually think that those windows on the north, the openings on the north side where those large archways are, seem very original because of the window sills and the depth of the windows and the fact that there are double hungs there with spacing for wood weights was very suspicious to me, but I worked the new layouts inside around those openings. And the only thing we're changing is turning those into casement sash windows so they're more like the original that you're seeing in the image to the left. But anyway, it's a very gentle approach. Found a very nice client that happened to live right down the street and wanted a single, simple historic building to live in and just a few adjustments. And so pretty pleased with the subtlety of this operation. But I think that addresses most of Brittany's comments. So I think that's all I have to add at this point.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, John. Commissioners, do you have any questions for our applicant? No questions for you, John. Thank you very much. All right, then let's
Thank you.
move on. Yeah, absolutely. Let's move on to public comments then. If you're joining us for Zoom, you can click on the little hand raise function at the bottom of your screen. Email landmark@denvergov.org, or if you're on your phone, dial *9. Taylor, anybody? What?
Doesn't look like.
No, it doesn't look like it. Okay, I just wanted to make sure. All righty, staff, did you have any other comments before we deliberate? All right, then, without further ado, let's deliberate. Commissioners, what are your thoughts on this project? It is quite a bit different than what we've seen in the past.
Relief that they were able to find an
I
owner
know, I
to
know.
work with kind of the scale of what is there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree with the staff report, and I think the only thing that was a question mark for me was the material choice of the brick and the kind of, I thought that was probably what they were going for, as the applicant said, is kind of what it would look like without stucco, a little bit of a maybe false sense of history question, but I think the hard line on it as opposed to having, kind of those little wavy details or whatever that you see. I think that makes it pretty clear. So, yeah.
Okay, that's a good point. Our architectural historian.
Yeah, I agree with Larry and the staff report, and I support the project as it is.
Very good, thank you. Nick, what are your thoughts?
Likewise do I. I support the project as by staff.
Carrie,
I agree.
George?
I got one question on the fourth condition that we were adding was a specification for the basement egress and
Egress openings and wells.
openings and wells. Okay. Yes, I can support.
Excellent. All right. Do I hear a motion? And remember, we did talk about the condition number 4. Erica will do it. Thank you, Erica.
I move to approve with conditions application number 2023-COA-652 for the demolition and additions at 155 Humboldt Street as per country design guidelines B2 through B4 and B7, design guidelines 2.1, 2.18, 2.20, 3.1, 3.3 through 3.10, 5.1, 5.2, 5.6, character defining features for the Country Club Historic District, presented testimony, submitted documentation and information provided in the staff report with the following conditions. One, to clarify existing stucco project scope and to not replace existing rough coat stucco per guideline 2.1. Number two, clarify if addition window sills will be cast stone or concrete per guideline 3.6 and 3.7. Number three, provide a manufacturer specification of the tile roof for the shed roofs on the addition per guideline 3.8. And four, provide specifications for the egress openings and wells.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor, aye? Oh,
Aye.
yeah, Larry seconded, sorry. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
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 Any opposed, nay? All right, the project has been approved. Thank you very much, John, if you're still with us. So our next project is 2023-COA-505 at 68 West Ellsworth Place in the Baker neighborhood. And again, it is Brittany.
Our next project is also for a rear addition at 68 West Ellsworth Avenue in the Baker Historic District. This is a contributing structure. It is a classic cottage with a gable roof at the front, and it does transition into a hipped roof at the rear with a dormer, which is fairly common for these smaller 1.5-story structures within the Baker Historic District. The existing structure has been stuccoed and a craftsman style porch has been added to the structure. And additionally, the front door has been replaced with a non-historic front door. This is within a row of fairly similar sister homes, but as you can see to the south east, there is a large vacant parking lot that is just outside of the district. So the applicant is proposing to demolish the existing rear 1-story addition and construct a new rear 1.5-story addition with rear porch. To accommodate the new addition, the applicant is also proposing to demolish the rear hipped roof and convert it into a gable roof form at the rear. This is something we have seen fairly often within the Baker Historic District, and the proposed demolition is less than 40% for the historic roof, so therefore it was not triggering a public hearing. So here are some existing photos of the structure and the existing rear addition that is proposed to be demolished. The stucco is in fairly poor condition, so the applicant is proposing to redo the stucco on the structure and patch and repair where necessary. For example, on the west elevation, you can see it's cracked here. Our guidelines do recommend remove non-historic coatings. However, it is likely that the existing brick has been damaged from the stucco application. So staff are supportive of the stucco repair where necessary, as it's been there for several years. And then you can see that hipped roof form with dormer that will be demolished in this street view along the alley. So again, here are the proposed conditions. So the existing non-historic front door will be replaced with a front door that is more compatible with the architectural character of the structure, and the existing historic wood windows on the structure will be retained and preserved where necessary, and just some general maintenance to the primary structure will occur as well. So here's the proposed rear addition. Again, the hipped roof will be converted into a gable roof, and the new addition will step down from that new ridge line that ties into the ridge line of the historic structure. It is about a foot, and the proposed addition is clad in a lap siding at the ground floor, and then in the gable face and dormers, it is proposed to be a board and batten siding. The addition is offset slightly from the west elevation, which is creating the slightly asymmetrical roof line of the addition as particularly noticeable on the south elevation. Staff feels that one material would be better for this addition, as the transition line on the west elevation between the two materials is somewhat awkward. So we are recommending at least one material for this addition, either it be board and batten or lap siding, or alternatively, the lap siding be brought up to the eave line of the roof on the west elevation to kind of make that transition a little less awkward. However, the change in material and the inset on both sides of the structure and the tight property lines, staff are not overly concerned that this addition is not totally symmetrical in the rear for this particular property. The new windows here will be, I believe, fiberglass composite. And then this is the proposed front door for this structure, which is a simple half light with 2 panels below. Several of the existing historic structures along the block have very ornate doors. So staff feel that this is appropriate because it's replicating those half-light doors with decorative panels below, but is also not creating a false sense of history and is compatible with the architectural style of the home. So generally speaking, we are recommending approval of this addition. Just one minor condition that either the lap sliding is raised to the eave line on the west elevation, or one cladding material be used on the additions and dormers per guideline 3.6.
Thank you very much. Commissioners, any questions? No questions for you, Brittany. Alrighty, is our applicant ready to give their presentation?
The applicant, please raise their hand.
It's Jeff.
I know, there's just 2 of them.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
We need the applicant to raise your hand, please, so we can get you lined up. Yep. Great, thank you.
You should be able to unmute and turn your camera on now.
Hello? Can you hear us? Conducting a seance. Hello?
Hello.
Hi. Yeah, great. Yeah, we can't see you. Have you turned on your camera? Oh, you don't have a camera? Okay.
I mean, he doesn't have
I'm
to.
trying.
Okay.
We can hear you. It's not 100% required that you return on your camera. So if you just want to start with your name and address, and you'll have 10 minutes to present.
Okay, sorry about that. I'm trying to turn on my camera.
No worries.
Okay, my name's Malik. My address is 1165 South Honey Way, Denver, Colorado.
Great, thank you.
I'm sorry, I'm having some problems, technical problems here.
Well, we can hear
Okay,
you.
so we're doing this addition to remove the, I'm sorry, is there any way I can you hear me okay now?
So Jeff, we can hear you. The 10 minutes are yours. So if you just keep
I know,
rolling.
I keep getting an echo every time I talk is the problem.
Oh, we're not getting the echo.
I know every time I talk, I hear myself for like 3 seconds later and it's distracting
Oh,
me.
that's awful. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's probably because it looks like you joined on 2 devices.
So let me try to leave on one.
Okay.
Can you guys still hear me?
Yeah, that's actually a lot better.
Okay, I apologize. I had to turn off my computer and now I'm just using my phone and it's, so I don't really have access to see what you guys are looking at right now. So this addition is to remove that, we wanted to remove that existing addition that was there, which was pretty much falling apart, and give a little bit more space inside of this house. So the addition will contain on the first floor a mudroom and a bedroom, and on the second floor, just one bedroom. And we tried to keep it compatible with all of the rules that were in the guidelines. And we tried to keep it subordinate to the existing structure. And that's it. I really don't have too much else to say. I think everything's been outlined by Brittany already. And so I guess if there's any questions, I can answer any questions.
All right, Jeff, thank you. Commissioners, do you have any questions for our applicant?
I don't.
Okay, it doesn't look like there are any questions. So thank you for joining us, Jeff.
Okay, sorry about that.
No, it's okay. It's totally fine. We're living the dream over
Okay.
here too sometimes. Okay, so now we go on to the public comment for the design review. If you're joining by phone, you can dial *9 on your phone, or you can email us at landmark@denvergov.org, or if you're on Zoom, just click on the little hand raise button at the bottom of your screen. Do we have anyone? No, it doesn't look like we have anybody. Okay, all right. Staff, do you have any additional comments?
Yes, I believe I said fiberglass windows.
Yes.
They are aluminum clad wood
Aluminum
windows.
clad. Okay. Okay, noted. All right, anything else? All right, then commissioners, let's go on into deliberation. What are your thoughts on this?
I agree with staff's assessment. I think this addition, the scale of it and its placement work very well. And I think the only awkward thing is the two different siding materials and kind of their placement. So I would agree with staff's recommendation for the condition to change that in one of two ways.
Okay, yeah, I agree. Other comments?
Yeah, I agree. I looked up the real estate listing of this and it's a job, so yeah,
Yeah,
props to
yeah,
the owners.
yeah, indeed. Nick?
I don't have anything additional.
Nope. All right, do I hear a motion?
I move to approve with conditions application number 2023-COA-505 for the roof and non-historic addition demolition, roof alteration, and 1.5-story addition at 68 West Ellsworth Avenue as per design guidelines 2.5, 2.6, 2.24, 3.1, 3.3 through 3.10, character defining features for the Baker Neighborhood Historic District, presented testimony, submitted documentation, and information provided in the staff report with the following condition: that the lap siding cladding is raised to the eave line on the west elevation, or one cladding material is used on the addition and dormer per guideline 3.6.
Erica, thank you. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Gary has seconded it. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? All right, it has been approved. Jeff, thank you for joining us and good luck with the project. All right, that is the end of our, I know, I saw that too.
Both of my motions.
Yeah.
Luckily, it's presented testimony. We don't resent the testimony at all. That's our job, to listen to it. All right, we have one business item, and Becca is going to tell us about 4524 Vrain Street. And it is a National Register nomination for the John and Nettie Kirtley House. We will go over the business item process. Sorry, I was reading. The chair will announce the business item on the agenda, which I guess I just did. Staff will introduce the business item. Commissioners can ask any questions. There is a public comment period, 2 minutes per person. And if you would like to speak regarding the business item, you can click on the hand raise button. For those on a call, dial *9 to make to make us know that you are interested in speaking. Or you can email landmark@denvergov.org prior to the public comment period. Staff will clarify if necessary, the commission can deliberate, and the commission will make a motion and vote. Becca, are you ready?
And this slide is missing that there is applicant presentation, so if
Well,
there
we
is,
don't have an applicant today, so.
okay, great.
Apologies, I'm not in person. I'm still recovering from the flu, so I thought it best to stay home.
Oh, that's too bad. Thanks.
Yeah, so today, the item before you is a National Register nomination. Just as a reminder, in accordance with Colorado's certified local government guidelines, nominations to the National Register of Historic Places must be presented to the local Historic Preservation Commission for review and comment. Today, we've asked you to review the nomination for the Kirtley House located at 4524 Vrain Street in the Berkeley neighborhood in Northwest Denver. This nomination has been prepared by Tom and Lori Simmons at the behest of the owners of the property, and it will be reviewed by the State Review Board in late January. So built in 1907, the Kirtley House is significant for its historic association with John and Nettie Kirtley, an African-American family who constructed the home. John Kirtley was a successful plasterer, and he purchased the property in Northwest Denver during a time when the city was very highly segregated. And it was quite rare that African-American families were living in this area at the time. According to the 1910 census, Black families comprised just 0.4% of the population of Northwest Denver. So this is a pretty unusual experience for the Kirtleys. John Kirtley, excuse me, purchased the home in 1907, and given that he was a plasterer, it's highly likely that he designed the decorative plasterwork that is still extant in the home today. And so even though normally Landmark does not look at the interior of buildings, it is kind of cool. You can see a picture up here of some of the decorative roses that he left behind. The Kirtleys operated the home as a boarding house during their ownership. The operation of a boarding house for Black lodgers in a primarily white neighborhood was also pretty unusual for the time period. And interestingly, the advertisements for rooms in the home also listed a telephone number at the time when telephones were in private homes were quite rare. So the Kirtley House simultaneously tells a story of the city's historic patterns of segregation and also the triumph of a family who broke color barriers and discrimination to create a home in Northwest Denver. As the Kirtley home nomination meets the national criteria or National Register criteria A at the local level of significance, we recommend that the application be forwarded to the keeper of the National Register for listing.
All right, any questions for Becca? Okay, terrific. Then thank you, Becca, and I hope you feel better. Public comments for the business items. If, like I said earlier, if you're joining us by phone, you can do *9. If you want to email landmark@denvergov.org, or if you're on computer, just use your little hand raise function. You have anybody? No. Okay, we do not have anyone. All right, then staff, do you have any other comments before we, okay, all right, then let's deliberate. What are your thoughts, commissioners? I want to see the plaster.
Yeah. I guess I'll jump in. I found the story really interesting, and I have, I guess, some questions for other commissioners, being, one of the newer commissioners here. And I guess what creates significance is the question that I have. I wasn't totally sold on the idea that this particular owner, given that it was a pretty short amount of time and there didn't seem to be a lot of other kind of community connections here, whether this rose to the level of significance to be put on the National Register.
Any other thought? Well, we do have an architectural historian here.
I would respond, I can definitely appreciate kind of questioning that. I think the nomination for me did a good job of connecting the Kirtley story to kind of broader trends of Black migration west, and then kind of establishing themselves sometimes in a neighborhood that wasn't welcoming. So, and I think it's important to keep in mind that for National Register nominations, it doesn't have to, one, it's just the one criterion versus our multiple ones that we must meet for city designations. But two, that the criteria doesn't state it has to be the best of something or like the only example of something. It needs to just be able to kind of present itself as representing that trend. So, you know, I think that leaves some room for interpretation of, you know, how strongly does it meet that trend? I think for me personally, I thought it did. And one comment I did want to add that I don't know if this would, you know, I'll mention it here just because it might address what you're also raising, Larry, that I thought the application or the nomination should have probably just in a footnote, a reference to the People's Presbyterian Church, as that that congregation is an important Black congregation in Denver, and two of its homes are listed in the National Register. One, it's the first one that it had is a contributing building to San Rafael Historic District at 23rd and Washington. But then there is a whole nomination for its later home at 2780 York Street. And that nomination gives this whole background of People's Presbyterian Church and its connections to, again, broader trends in Black history in the West, including Deerfield. So there's kind of these tendrils, I guess, or like connections that I think are important for someone reading this to know that there's these bigger connections to other stories. So that's what I would say.
Thank you. That's super helpful.
Yeah, I kind of thought about that as well. I'm guessing that will be a discussion item when the state looks at this. But for me, it meets it. I'm okay with it. Anybody else?
I just love a story of a little guy bucking the system that we're still fighting today. So I think, you know, that's hard plastering.
I know. I'm all admiration. All right, do I hear a motion?
I'll move to recommend, what are we recommending exactly? Approval by this review
I
board.
can read it, the
Thank
motion
you.
to you.
Okay.
I move to recommend that the National Register nomination for the Kirtley House at 4524 Varian Street be forwarded to the keeper of the National Register of Historic Places per presented testimony, submitted documentation, and information provided in the staff report.
Thank you. I would also like to add to that a recommendation that the footnote regarding People's Presbyterian Church designations be added to the nomination.
All right. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Larry has seconded it. All right, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye. All right, any opposed, nay? All right, we will send that on. Becca, thank you very much.
So our next,
item is a discussion item, and I bet you have a slide for me to read.
not quite yet.
Oh.
So Jill is coming over from Ludi and she said she'd be here by 2:45. It's 2:43, so if we want to take a short break.
perhaps we'd ought to take a
Yeah,
short
and I know
break then.
Tara's outside, so yeah, so good timing if you want to take a break and then everyone can be set up when you come back.
Excellent, thank you. Good work, everybody. Start recording. Okay, great. Alrighty, we are back and our guests are here and I will explain the discussion item process. These are informational items for the commission to discuss without action. The chair may allow public comment, or the chair will allow public comment for discussion items if warranted. The chair will announce the discussion item on the agenda. Staff will introduce the information item or item for discussion. Public comment period will be 2 minutes per person. The commission will discuss amongst themselves and the staff. No actions or votes will be taken for the discussion items. All right, so I will announce that we have the Cherry Creek and Spear Boulevard Vision Study as our discussion item. So take it away.
Great, thank you so much. My name is Jill Jennings Golick, and I am currently acting Executive Director for Community Planning and Development, also Deputy Director. I'm very excited to be here today. I'll have Tara introduce herself, and then we have Kaya online.
Tara Mazio, I am an architect and urban designer with Community Planning and Development.
Thank you.
And she didn't actually accept to be moved over, so.
Okay, well, while that works out, I'll just note we have Kaya Nesbitt online. She is one of our lead consultants with HDR, helping us on this study, and will be available for answering more detailed questions.
Yeah, I don't know if you can hear.
Yeah.
me. Oh, you can,
Yeah,
okay.
there you are. Yeah, we can hear you.
Hi all. This is Kaya Nesbitt. Thank you so much for this discussion today. And really Jill and Tara are leading this, but I'm here to help support as needed.
All right, great. So we'll give an overview today of the project, what we're doing and why. We'll have a briefing on the alternatives and our preferred solution, and then cover what's next. And we'd like to just point out, this is really a joint effort between our department, Community Planning and Development, along with Department of Parks and Recreation, as well as Department of Transportation and Infrastructure. So DPR and DOTI are key partners in this effort. Unfortunately couldn't join us today, but are here in spirit. We can certainly follow up with them if you have detailed questions on any of the items more particular to them. So just real quick before we dive in, a reminder of how we got here. In summer of 2022, I believe it was, we partnered with Urban Land Institute, ULI Colorado, and National to do an advisory services panel, or ASP, I think they call it for short, really looking at Spear Boulevard and what could be done with Spear. Maybe a quick little bit about me. Prior to coming to the city, originally I was at the Auraria campus. So I've spent quite a number of years thinking about Spear Boulevard. It's been talked about in the city for quite a long time. Are we gonna bury it? Are we gonna bridge over it? What are we doing? And in 2022, there was really an impetus to kind of, as a city, come together and say, what is our vision? What do we want Spear Boulevard to be? It is quite honestly today, a divider of our downtown. And we have obviously plans, not only with the Auraria Higher Education Center and the Auraria campus, working on a new master plan, but we've got Ball Arena, we have River Mile. So our downtown is really expanding, and Spear needs to no longer be a barrier. And so we partnered with ULI, had this advisory services panel to really sort of say, what can we do? What should we do with Spear Boulevard? It set out some big ideas. And this is sort of a follow-on to that. We cobbled together some money from the three agencies to look at sort of really putting together a high-level vision and feasibility study. This is not design. So there is a lot of work to be done should this move forward, but it helps at least advance the conversation, get us as the city, the community to hopefully buy in on sort of, again, what do we want Spear Boulevard to be? Because it's my opinion, it should not continue to be as it is today, which is a thoroughfare for cars and a barrier in our downtown. So it's a little bit about how we got here. If you want to go next slide. So how can we unify our city? Like, as I mentioned, Spear today really serves as a barrier. And so, you know, the impetus and important part about this study is it's interdisciplinary. We're thinking holistically, working across disciplines to allow us to unlock the maximum potential of our city. So as I mentioned, this is really all of us coming to the table, CPD, DPR, and DOTI to look at this corridor. We began by considering the broad context of hydrology. Obviously, Cherry Creek, important spine along Spear Boulevard, and the importance of it as a historical place of confluence. And together we've been exploring mobility, ecology, parks, and the public realm with a consideration of both short and long-term potentials. With again, how can we transform Spear and Cherry Creek to a unifying element in our city instead of a division as it is today. Next slide. So this study, we have 5 key goals. The first is amplifying the creek. The second is planning for downtown activity. The third, reinforcing our city transportation goals. We need to think about differently about how we move people across the city, also through this corridor and along it. 4, celebrate the history. And 5, consider what could happen nearer term as well as longer term. Connectivity across Spear between downtown Denver, the Aurora campus, Ball Arena, River Mile is really important, but there has to be a reason to cross. Today, you cross primarily on foot or bike if you're a student or faculty staff member at the campus, if you're going to an event at Ball Arena, or you're going to the amusement park. Obviously, over time, we've got some ambitious plans to really transform, and so Spear, along with those plans, needs to transform. So we have a bold vision statement, apologies, but you can see here, imagine Cherry Creek and Spear Boulevard as an ecological corridor in the city of Denver with the potential to unify downtown, plan for growth, enhance the movement of people, and amplify art and nature in the city. Next slide. So this is a map of our study area. So we're looking at Spear Boulevard and Cherry Creek between Colfax and I-25. It's important to understand there are many adjacent stakeholders as well as transformational projects, many of which I've already alluded to, coming online that really is kind of the impetus for thinking about this corridor. Next slide. So I'll highlight on our schedule really quick. It's been very ambitious. Again, we had sort of limited dollars to come together to really continue the thinking. So we started last spring in 2023, understanding the area and initiating outreach. The summer and fall, we defined the challenges and started crafting the vision. And I'll highlight next on some of our outreach in these phases. In the winter, which is where we're at right now, we evaluated alternatives and developed final recommendations. And then HDR and their team is at work on putting a draft report together, outlining what we've heard, where we've been, and how we'd like to move forward. So I'll highlight really quickly the multiple types of engagement opportunities through this brief study. Obviously, we set up a project website to share ongoing information. We did an online survey, which had, I think, over 900 responses last summer, fall. We coordinated with the Auraria Higher Education Center on an open house that they were working for their master plan to really combine efforts. Had a great number of students attend, which was really awesome to see. Quite a lot of feedback received. Just kind of giving us information about how do people use the corridor? How do they want to use the corridor? What should we consider? We interviewed 24 different stakeholders earlier in the summer as well, highlighting on some of the key themes you see here in terms of industry, local initiatives, corridor travelers, mobility, et cetera. And then we had a public open house at the end of November, really trying to bring forth what we've heard and present some recommendations to the broader public, and that's what we're here to share today. So what are some of the key themes we've heard through this outreach? In terms of future uses, wanting to see a restored landscape, mixed uses, really looking at how do we create great park spaces along this corridor, and particularly make use of Cherry Creek. Looking at strong connections on Larimer and Wawata, really thinking about what are those connections between the Performing Arts Complex and the Auraria Higher Education Center. We heard from folks that they wanted something to happen soon. How do we slow traffic, maybe reroute Spear Boulevard to make room for people? Other folks want to see transit. Is there transit opportunities along Spear? In terms of activities, full range, pop-up, other types of programmed events. Again, how do we look at moving people through this corridor and along it? Different types of development, including housing, building off of the education nature of the Auraria Higher Education Center, other opportunities to embrace that from a learning perspective, restaurant, coffee space. And then again, how do we engage with the creek today? If you're on the trail on your bike, moving through quickly, you might be able to, walk along it and experience the creek. But if you're above, you really don't have a lot of enjoyment or ability to interact with the creek along this corridor in that many locations, and how do we improve that? Next slide. So I highlighted on some of our top study goals previously, but just to kind of highlight some of the things we've heard from the public and how that's impacted this study. You know, unifying downtown, how do we use this corridor to stitch our downtown together? It needs to be welcoming. We want to prioritize health and safety along Cherry Creek and Spear Boulevard, celebrate water and improve our ability from a climate resilience standpoint. I still remember, forget the day in 2013 when we had the tremendous rains and floods. I was at the Auraria campus, was crossing Spear Boulevard and saw Cherry Creek at the highest level I've ever seen it in my life. And it was scary, breathtaking, but we're gonna probably see more of those events over time with changes to our climate. And how do we better plan for that and make the creek and the area safer for people to use? How do we think about anticipating growth? As I mentioned, we've got some potential big new developments coming downtown. How do we really create something that's uniquely Denver? We don't have a lot of water, obviously, in our city or state. And even though at most times there is a trickle through Cherry Creek, it's still water, which we don't have a lot of. And how do we celebrate that and amplify opportunities to connect to that? Also wanting to restore the historic significance, which I'll talk a little bit about in a minute as it relates to Spear Boulevard. Expanding our parks and open space and opportunities for large scale recreation. Even though there are some parks today along the corridor, they're not very well used and a little bit disjointed. And then improving access to downtown through the Cherry Creek Trail. Next slide. So in terms of the historic significance, you can see some original graphics here. Obviously, the Landmark Preservation Ordinance from 1967, but in particular Spear Boulevard. And so while it's all in orange, we have some other graphics that'll highlight this on the right-hand side. This corridor has two overlapping districts that touch it. Obviously, the corridor itself, the Spear Boulevard Historic District, is a designated historic district. And then you have the lower downtown historic district as well that touches on this corridor. So those are those two orange pieces coming together. Spear Boulevard Historic District was designated in 1988, extends from First Avenue to Irving Street with a period of significance of 1904 to 1957. And the downtown portion of Spear, as I understand it, was not included in the National Register listing since it was constructed after the period of significance. Next slide. So I wanted to share some key themes from the Spear Boulevard Historic District guidelines that we believe, as you'll see from Tara here shortly, we've been able to achieve through this vision. So the first is maintaining the linear boulevard, that the physical character should emphasize and regenerate the boulevard as a place for people and multiple uses, and I'm not going to read them all here. But this is just a snippet, and I know Abby, I think, presented last month, maybe, to you all and shared some of this, but I just really wanted to highlight that we, have looked at this, and we believe that what we've put forth really embraces the vision and the design guidelines for this corridor. So I think with that, Tara, I will turn it over to you.
Great. So the team developed multiple alternatives that address the creek mobility and land use. We'll look at these briefly. Next, please. A survey of the creekside ecology showed most of the plants in the corridor to be invasive or noxious weeds. And hydrology reports showed the creek itself to also be of poor health. While this study that we are in the middle of and kind of approaching the end of does address the ecologic and hydrologic health of the corridor, that's not the focus of our discussion today, but I did want to point that out. Next, please. Regarding mobility, the team was charged with focusing on moving people rather than cars and anticipating future volumes that are outlined in Denver Moves. Denver Moves also outlines mode shift plans that this plan addresses. Specifically for Spear Boulevard, 2 alignment alternatives rose to the top, which you can see here on the left. The southern Spear alignment consolidates all the lanes of Spear and transit, people movement and bike lanes along the creek's southern edge, and is preferred based on its ability to create a strong urban edge for the Auraria campus. It's kind of clear and sort of obvious alignment, and its ability to unlock opportunities for new parks, new open space, and new development. Next. The current plan is for the realignment of Spear to be made within the existing right-of-way. Yes.
Let me just highlight here so you can see it a little bit better than the orange version previously. So you can see the blue dashed area includes what is the Spear Boulevard Historic District. And then sort of that gray overlay coming down between, oh gosh, I can't.
Larimer and Wayzata.
Thank you. Larimer and Wayzata is the lower downtown historic district. And so that comes up, I believe, to the edge of northbound Spear, but Abby could correct me if I got that wrong. Just to point that out. And then there is one oddly enough triangle that you'll see that isn't sort of shaded between Larimer, I believe, and
yeah, right there.
Lawrence, that is actually outside of the historic designation. So sorry, Tara.
No problem, yes. So again, we are not proposing any changes to the location of the right-of-way or expansion of the right-of-way. And so the bridge that is proposed to connect Wynkoop to the future Ball Arena redevelopment does not conflict with this proposed Spear alignment. Next, please. In addition to the southern alignment of Spear, 2 intersections were studied further for potential reconfiguration. Again, intended to create a more simplified traffic flow and also to unlock the potential for land use. More study is needed on both of these to confirm the strength of them, but we're excited about the potential. Next, please. So what could these new public spaces look and feel like? We're thinking about them in 4 distinct character zones that you can see here. The Confluence extension near I-25 on the left functions as a gateway to downtown Denver and also connects to the future River Mile district. Wayzata Narrows gives us the opportunity to connect Ball Arena to lower downtown more graciously. At Larimer Terraces, the reconfiguration of Spear unlocks new space for both parks and development. And the Champa Art Park, farthest to the right, is a large new park connecting the Denver Performing Arts Complex to the creek and to the Auraria campus beyond. Next, please. At the Confluence extension, we could potentially connect Centennial Park to Commons Park, under Spear Boulevard and along the Platte River. Next. This image begins to show a healthier creek and ecosystem that can still manage floodwaters, but includes adaptive and native plants that cleanse stormwater and create an engaging place for people to connect to the creek. Next. With the reconfiguration of Spear, perhaps remnant walls like those shown in this illustration could tell the story of a channelized Cherry Creek history, while new vertical development creates new value and new housing solutions. Next. The Champa Art Park, as mentioned earlier, could open up substantial new downtown park space that could include event activation, outdoor performance venues, and connection to an ecologically healthy creek corridor for the Auraria campus and for downtown residents.
All right, in terms of what's next, if you want to go to the next slide. So as I mentioned, this is a high level vision and feasibility study. So we are expecting a draft report, I want to say next week. We know there's continued engagement of various community partners, city partners as well, that's necessary to move this forward. Obviously, this is again a high level vision and feasibility study. So, you know, what are the options in terms of funding, future design, what other work could be done? And then we have had some initial conversations about the potential for some pilot projects. How might we be able to maybe partner with Downtown Denver Partnership, for example, and look at a similar idea to Viva Streets on Broadway instead of, and do it on Spear potentially. So I think there's lots of ideas and excitement for what could come forward and a lot of work still to be done. Again, this is really just sort of an evolution of the first step with ULI in trying to put forth a vision for what do we want Spear to be in the future. And with that, I think we are happy to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you so much for the time today.
Yeah, of course. Commissioners, questions, comments?
I'm curious, so you specify how Spear Boulevard became a historic district or when it was, its boundaries. But as far as what is its historic significance, like what that importance is that something that has been further defined or explored in this study? And if so, can you give some ideas of what you've taken that significance to be?
I can start and then others certainly feel free to jump in. But right, as a boulevard, as part of sort of the original City Beautiful movement, right? It was a way to move people. Obviously, trees and plantings and that linear nature were incredibly important. And so I think with this, particularly in the section where we are proposing to realign, it really helps continue that character that's further along. But really thinking about, I mean, over time, Spear has become a way to move cars and not people. And so I think the big idea here is really bringing it back to a way to move people. And de-emphasizing the car and providing space and opportunities for people to get around in other ways. Obviously, the car is still important. There will still be space for that. So don't want to scare anyone. But you know, really looking at how do we create spaces for pedestrians? How do we embrace the creek? How do we create other means of mobility and, you know, the potential for transit, which doesn't exist today on Spear, and what might that look like in the future? If others have anything they'd like to add, or if Kaya online, if you have anything.
No, I
Or
think,
Abby.
you know, you've stated it really well. We understand the linear character, boulevard character is really important, but that we are thinking and we're intending to create a modern boulevard, which is bringing Spear into the future while also respecting its past.
Yeah, I guess, and I don't even know how much this relates to this section of Spear, because this is quite different than the other sections, right? But when I think of City Beautiful specifically, I think of symmetry. You know, there's mention of like historic vistas, which I think is also an important part of City Beautiful. But again, I don't even know if there was a time that those design principles of City Beautiful apply to this section of Spear. But I guess I'm just wondering more about those, like linear, sure, boulevard, yes, but are there any other design principles that are applicable to this section of Spear? And if so, are they helping drive ideas? But if it may, and maybe they're not, so, yeah.
I mean, I think to the extent that what we have shared is kind of where we're at today.
Yeah.
I think obviously for some of this, getting more into some of the design details will be really telling, and that's just not at a point where we're at today. But I don't know, Abby, as part of the project team, is there anything you would add? No?
It's kind of covered. I mean, yeah, it's basically just, it's really high level, so it
Yep.
hasn't.
I know, it,
gotten
with
down
these
to-
things, it's always kind of hard to know, like, where do you
Yeah.
start and where do you stop?
No, it's a
So-
great question, but yeah, not beyond the kind of just big picture.
Okay.
But I think if there are specific things you feel like are really important that we need to make sure we address, you know, if this moves forward, please share that, because that will be really helpful in future phases.
Any other comments?
You know, yeah, it seems like a really good overall vision. And, yeah, it's hard to parse out the landmark specific components of it, but I think the reducing of traffic has been long an issue that I've known of for Spear and particularly at the campus. So yeah, it's great to see that vision coming.
Well, yeah, I wonder if the study is addressing how will the traffic be reduced and not rechanneling it somewhere else where it is another problem. In other words, taking a problem from one location and putting it somewhere else. Because it is, its diagonal nature, really connects Cherry Creek area with the Highlands as well as the highway. And how does the study address a potential implementation strategy for reducing traffic on Spear? Rather, I mean, the divisions are great,
Right.
but they depend on reducing
Yes.
the impact of the car. Even looking at this rendering, it's still an edge. And whether you cross Spear in two chunks with the river between, or 6 lanes or 8 however many lanes, without bridges or tunnels. I don't think tunnels are a strategy, but without bridges, how does the vision create the motivation for people to actually reduce the edginess of both the creek and Spear Boulevard?
Right. So I'll share a couple things and then others chime in. I think, and it's funny, I talked about this a lot when I was at the Aurora campus. And so I started kind of after the science building was underway, but that was at least the campus's first attempt to think a little differently about its edge. I worked on the CU building at Spear and Larimer, and I said, we're not having another sort of just set of windows. We need to think about a different Spear in the future. It's not always going to be this way. And how do our building edges embrace a more active streets that could be in the future? So it's small, but there's a couple doors that I actually do see people using and more activity in life that you can see, whereas the science building is just kind of windows you can't really participate in. So I think it starts with how do we think differently about our building edges along Spear? And we as the city are just as much, right, with the Performing Arts Complex, with the Convention Center. All of those really turn their back to Spear Boulevard. And so we need to think differently about that. Obviously with Ball Arena, with River Mile, we have a great opportunity to embrace new development, to position themselves and provide more activity. As I mentioned a little bit, I think when I was talking earlier, just because we make Spear different, there's still not, you still have to have a reason to cross and to be there. So, with a change to the parks and open space that we've talked about, taking back the walls of the creating a greater space, that's one thing to create a reason for people to go. We do think there is a need and opportunity for some new development, whether that's in some of these parcels or what happens at Aurelia and Ball Arena and River Mile, to create reasons for people to go, because just changing the corridor on its own is not enough. And so I think it's all of those things together. It has to be a safer place. It has to be more welcoming. It's got to have a variety of uses in order to make it a special place. And then Tara, Kaya, please chime in.
Yeah, Kaya, I wonder if you can discuss the kind of high level transit studies that your team is kind of finalizing for this report.
Yes, absolutely. So as Tara mentioned, we've really engaged experts in the public realm design, urban design, transportation design, and water and hydrology. And that's a really exciting thing, because in addition to the expression of the vision that you're seeing that's very interdisciplinary, we also had separate mini teams that are diving, I would say, mid-level deep to make sure we're studying feasibility. So for our transportation and mobility team, the first part of your question about how are we making sure we're understanding traffic and not just moving it to other places, that's a really important part of thinking of this whole area of the city in the future, because we know that major transformational development is coming in areas like Ball Arena and River Mile. So we need to plan for the future anyway, and mobility will be different in the next 10 to 20 years. what we're trying to do here with what our mobility team tried to do was to really prioritize the moving of people. And so thinking about that from a volume perspective of people movement and creating opportunity for mode shift, which is a part of what Denver Moves was defining. So what you don't see too much in these graphics is a strong expression or a vision for enhancing the Cherry Creek Trail as a safe passage for whether you're going through this whole corridor or partway through. An enhancement of bike ped along the edge of Spear Boulevard itself, and then also the addition of transit. So currently there isn't a bus service along Spear. It crosses at a couple different locations, but part of what we are planning for is reusing or reconfiguring that right of way so that we can shift modes so it's not as car dominant, but it enhances mobility holistically, including bike ped and including transit. And as this keeps being brought up, this is a high level study. So we know full well that in order to really understand where those traffic patterns might shift, one of the recommendations following this would be a more in-depth traffic study. But for this study itself, it was pretty high level and focused more on identifying volumes of mode shift towards bike ped and transit.
Anything else?
So I just had one question. I don't know if you all have any answers, but we looked at as a discussion item, I don't know, a couple meetings ago, the proposed bridge connecting the River Mile development. And yeah, just wondering if that was something that has figured into this, if there's any take on it. I guess personally, I was a little bit skeptical that, elevating pedestrian traffic would maybe create some disconnection from the creek and sort of at-grade city life. And so yeah, just curious if there were any takes on that.
Sure, I can start. So I think as Tara noted, and it's hard to tell in the graphics, but there's an arrow in the wind coop alignment that's sort of showing the proposal for the Ball Arena Bridge. We're not proposing to change the width of the right of way in this section. So, assuming that they are building it outside on either end, we don't see a conflict. I think obviously our desire first and foremost is to improve the at-grade pedestrian environment. It is not great today, and we know that it needs improvements. At times of large events and activity at Ball Arena, is it helpful to have another option for people to go? I think that's certainly their point of view. I think we want to make sure that there are multiple options for people to get around safely.
And do you view that, I think that's a great question, Larry. Do you view the proposed pedestrian bridge at Ball Arena being the first of many? Are you anticipating that the plans that you're exploring now with the reconfiguration of Spear Boulevard to one side of the creek, that you would be introducing others?
So at least I think this, from the city's perspective, it is not our plan to add bridges. Obviously, if others continue to propose them, that's things we'll have to entertain on a case by case basis. But I think our priority again is on improving the at-grade environment. Generally, right, where pedestrian bridges often work best are when you have no other option, right? And so, this isn't the case here, but Spear is challenging today, right? I mean, I think we can all admit to that. It's going to take quite a lot of time, money, and effort to see this vision, assuming it's embraced, move forward. And so we have a span where we continue to see a lot of cars, and conflicts with pedestrians, particularly at times of events when we see a lot of pedestrians. So again, I fully understand why they're proposing it. I hope to live in a world where in the future, that's not as big of an issue.
Is there not to dwell on this pedestrian bridge at Ball Arena, but if Spear does get consolidated to the south, is there an opportunity in that green box, the rectangle to the north of Spear, generally north, to depress that from grade down to creek level and through a series of meandering ramps on the Ball Arena side, bring pedestrians down beneath Spear? Is that something being considered?
I don't think so, but Kaya, can you respond on that?
So I'm not sure I understand completely. Are you mentioning, is this as an alternative to the bridge, the PED bridge, to consider an underpass? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, because as you move, as I'm looking at the plan further to the right, and you have the art park renderings that show a connection of parks that exist now to the north and to the south beneath Spear. Is there that same opportunity as you head west for Ball Arena?
Okay, so you're referring to that sculpture park area. Is there a possibility to go under Spear, and the other possible place might be Creekfront Park?
I think I don't know which park that rendering is of that shows Spear above it. I'm wondering if that same opportunity exists for Ball Arena pedestrian access to lower downtown.
So okay, so this expression here that's an idea of a vision that would really help connect River Mile to Commons Park. What we are lacking currently in the River Mile area is large open space. So this could create that type of connection, strong pedestrian connection, in a place where Spear will continue to be one of those higher speed dividers because you're about ready to get onto I-25. So if you go back to the let's see, actually keep going if you wouldn't mind, to slide 21. So at the art park, what in our conversations with the Auraria campus, we have been doing our best to partner with them and understand their vision for the future of their campus. And what they have described to us is a high desire for an urban edge along that Spear, along the southern edge of Spear Boulevard. When and if we were to remove the northbound lane of Spear, which is essentially where you see those remnant walls, the amount of space that opens up is so dramatic that our recommendation as a design team is to maximize that available space. And it doesn't, if we've got that room to sort of lay back the slope, and it wouldn't require an underpass at all, and result in a very significant open space and park.
Okay, so it was my bad. I was thinking that the Spear over the part of Spear that would be retained in that rendering was toward the art park, but it's not. It's over toward the Ball Arena or west of there at the River Mile.
So if you could zoom in, whoever's controlling, on the Champa Art Park to the right. Yes, so zoom exactly that where it says Cherry Creek. Yep. So in this section, the proposal is we would reconfigure Spear Boulevard to remove that northbound lane, which is adjacent to the current art park. We
Yeah.
would retain the southbound lanes. And what that results in is a big opening up of the art park and an expansion of that art park.
Yeah, I understand that. I'm focused on the other end near.
Oh, now we're going back. Okay, over here.
The Wawata area, go to the
Yes.
next slide, I think.
Yes, exactly, Wawata.
So at Wawata, we, as the design team, have been working under the expectation that the PED bridge is moving forward. That is not part of our proposal. That is part of others. And so from our perspective, if you're already doing a PED bridge, we would not recommend also doing an underpass. We would follow what Jill mentioned, which is doing our best to prioritize the at-grade activity, knowing that the PED bridge is likely to come forward.
I wonder if that's a missed opportunity. If you're creating all that new grade, as you look at this rendering to the left of the people in the foreground.
Mm-hmm.
And that if you lower that closer to the river level, then you create an opportunity to avoid putting a pedestrian bridge over Spear.
Right. We did do a little bit of study on a few cross sections of these 4 different zones that Tara described. In this area, there isn't a lot of grade to, I mean, that grade would feel, if you can imagine what the sort of at Larimer, between Larimer and Lawrence, when you cross underneath Spear now on the bike path, it's a pretty low, like the headroom is pretty low. It's not a great experience under there. Not a lot would grow. And when you move further to the west, that height decreases even more. So it's not a great experience as an underpass, but to your point, it could be, it could be a potential connector. We just, as the design team, felt like it would be duplicative to try and do an underpass if the PED bridge is already moving forward.
Understand, thank you.
All right, anything else?
I'm wondering, are there precedents elsewhere in the world where a similar kind of issue was addressed that might give some insights as to what kind of things might work and what kind of things might not work? I know, like in Japan, for example, streets have been eliminated and become pedestrian right-of-ways. And perhaps in China, the same things have been done. But I'm wondering what other precedents can help inform the vision in a way that there's a higher likelihood of success in a way. I read a book some time ago about the trouble with Vancouverization, where great plans look beautiful even in their implementation, but don't generate the pedestrian traffic that was expected or hoped for. It seems to me that there needs to be some kind of magnets of activity on both sides of the corridor that actually draws people. Providing access alone isn't going to do it. If the centers of activity are inside the zones on each side rather than along the edges, the planned vision may not evolve.
Kaya, do you want to take that one?
Sure. That's absolutely something that we know we're not designing in a vacuum here, and there are a lot of places all over the world. One of the first things that we did was a whole series of precedent studies. We looked at Broadway Boulevard in New York. We looked at Harbor Drive in Portland. We looked at shared streets in Amsterdam. We looked at the Indianapolis Cultural Trail. We looked at Clyde Warren Park in Dallas. One of the more interesting places that we studied was Chongyang Stream in Seoul, Korea, which has both a creek restoration and ecological urbanism right in the heart of an urban center. So I think just as you noted, from all of those precedent studies, we did draw out some key ideas. One thing you mentioned is that importance of magnets of activity adjacent to it. So creating a there, if you will. We also compared these various precedents in regard to grade change. So how much difference between the level of cars or motorized vehicles for compared to stream level, that sort of quietness creates a different kind of feeling. We looked at the perception of visibility, so that there's a difference between an actual distance that people need to cross versus the perception of how comfortable it is to cross a street. So a number of the cross sections that we studied investigated what kinds of elements help people feel more comfortable. Some of those things include green and trees, lighting and technology for signalization, having something on the other side that feels or looks close as a landmark that you really want to get to quickly, so it feels like you're going to reach something quickly. But yes, we absolutely looked at a number of these things, and we encourage whomever moves this forward into the design phases also looks back at those and maybe even other precedents to take note.
Okay. Anything else? We haven't yet called for public comment, but just in case.
Do we have anybody?
We have one person, just in case they want to comment.
All
We'll call
right.
for it.
Who's it?
Michael Henry.
So if there's anybody out there that would like to make a public comment, this is the time to let us know. You can, if you're on Zoom, just click on the hand raise icon at the bottom of the screen if you'd like to join us for a public comment. Would have 2 minutes to make your comment. Doesn't look like anyone is interested in doing so. All right, okay. Then if we don't have any other questions for our presenters, then here we are. Thank you very much. We appreciate your time.
Yeah, thank you very much for the time.
It's a big undertaking. It has terrified me for years. All right. It is 20 until 4 o'clock, so 3:40 in the afternoon on January 9th. I am closing our meeting, and we will see you in a couple weeks, 23rd.
We
All
will be
right.
meeting on the 23rd.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.